1 year ago, government and private health officials across Grenada were on guard as the mosquito-borne chikungunya virus spread throughout the country. A year later, another virus carried by the same Aedes aegypti mosquito is threatening to do the same. The virus known as Zika was confirmed in the Caribbean community by the Caribbean Public Health Agency CARFA, which prompted the Grenadian Health Ministry to step up its surveillance at all major ports. George Mitchell, the Grenadian Chief Medical Officer, explains why.
With the impending threat of Zika, we are determined to ensure that as much as is within our mandate, that we try and ensure that the necessary cleanup is done to mitigate against all possible breeding sites for the mosquito.
So what are some of the measures the local health ministry have been implementing? Kenny James is the Senior Environmental Health Officer that oversees the very active Vector Control Division of the Ministry of Health.
We want the Grenadian public, citizens and everyone, every national, to clean up the environment. This is how we can reduce the level of infestation of the vector. As you are aware, the vector is what transmits the disease, the Aedes aegypti mosquito. Conditions like these here are just ideal for the proliferation or the breeding of these vectors. So we want everyone to come on board with us, join us, and have the Grenada as a clean place. Remove all the breeding sites that are capable of breeding mosquitoes and endangering our lives.
Although fogging is often requested by homeowners, James reminds citizens that source reduction is key in eliminating the threat of Zika and other mosquito-borne illness.
Fogging, most times person requests fogging, but fogging, I want them to understand, fogging is just for the moment. For instance, when you fog, the fog will come in contact with the mosquitoes, and once it comes in contact with the mosquitoes, it will knock them down. However, there isn't any residual effect with the fog because it will be blown away by the wind, and mosquitoes emerging seconds, minutes after will not be killed by the fog. So we asking persons to clean the environment. That's how reduce the breeding sites, and that's how they can take care of the mosquito.
The threat of Zika has resulted in several people calling on the Ministry of Health to take individuals that fail to clean their surroundings and perpetrate the breeding of mosquitoes and other vectors like rats to task. Only last week, the ministry responded to such a call in the south of the island where residents called action against lawbreakers. Francis Bagwan, the acting Chief Environmental Health Officer, having seen the ISO and stagnant water, declared that swift action must be taken to safeguard the community.
Well, this is totally unacceptable, especially when we are threatened by vectors of public health importance, vectors that actually emerging and is actually creating, a threat to the health of the nation. Now, when we see situation like that, we expect it to act, and we always say that enforcement of the law many times is our last resort, and many times we try persuasion, we try dialogue. We try discussions and so on, and many times you find that it fails. But we also are law enforcement officers, and we expect it at some point in time to exercise the law.
One resident also had this to say.
A lot of mosquito there too.
So you agree that the Ministry of Health
should take action long? Okay. Yes, why not?
Zika, according to official scientific findings, has similar symptoms like chikungunya, explains Dr. Francis Martin, Senior Medical Officer in the Ministry of Health.
The symptoms of the Zika virus are very similar to the symptoms of regular viruses that we get, which is fever, headaches, pain in your joints, especially the small joints, the hands and the feet. Persons may also get a rash starting in the torso and then moving to the other parts of the body. And some persons may get conjunctivitis, which is a redness and irritation of the eyes, swelling of the feet and hands. Those are some of the basic symptoms of the Zika virus.
However, he says while the symptoms may seem mild, Zika virus infection is also complicated by the Guillain-Barré syndrome, GBS. Dr. Francis Martin speaks about the syndrome.
People who get infected with viruses, as a matter of fact, especially viruses that cause respiratory problems and in this case problems of the joint, some subset of persons may experience a particular complication of the virus, which is a neurological complication. What we've noticed in the region, especially in the French islands, is that persons who have had Zika virus develop a complication called Guillain-Barré syndrome, which is a neurological problem with the facial muscles, where one part of the facial muscles or one side of the facial muscles might become paralyzed because these nerves stop functioning well. And as a result of that, patients may experience drooping of the one side of the face, drooping of the eyelids. You may have problems with saliva on that side or the lips on that side. So, the patient's or the person's face might be just a little bit asymmetrical because of lack of movement or lack of control over the muscles on that side of the face. This is a complication that has been documented regarding post-Zika virus infection and is very common in some of the French islands.
Meanwhile, as the country continues to put measures in place to address the disease, the ministry has been at the forefront with its public education campaign. These include 2-street education campaigns, news bulletins, electronic information displays, and the National Task Force meeting thus far. Health officials also say the ministry has stockpiled the necessary materials for the fogging campaign, which will continue through January. And that's State of Affairs. I am Kevin Frederick reporting.